So should we just start calling the St. Louis Cardinals the comeback cards for now? I mean, at this point, I really don't think there's a better way to brand this baseball team. What a fun month it's been for St. Louis. Another series win against the Baltimore Orioles. St. Louis came from behind yet again en route to their 6-4 win in the rubber match on Wednesday night at Camden Yards. And after an off day in beautiful, scenic Arlington, Texas, they are ready for another 3-game interleague set, this time against the Texas Rangers. Welcome back to Cardinal Territory. I'm Katie Wu, riding solo with you today on this Friday afternoon, but still plenty of fun things to talk about. Let's break down some numbers that I think you would like. The Cardinals have won 18 of their last 23 games. They've won 8 of their last 10 series. They are 8 games over 500, a season high. If you're anything like me, you're probably asking, what the heck is going on? And that's a great question. Let's break it down. The biggest question surrounding this Cardinals club in April was if they could balance individual player runway with overall team results. This was a huge talking point in spring training and in early to late April when they started to slide and fell as low as 5 games under 500. And in conversations with manager Oli Marmol and president of baseball operations John Mozeliak, this consensus was, we're not sure if we can do both, but we think right now we should be afforded the ability to try. Fast forward to the end of May, and if this month has been any indication at all, it looks like they can do both. But the key difference here is that the players in which are sparking this surge aren't necessarily the players that the organization first identified as the main factors, if you will. So we'll get into what exactly that means. And that's what we'll spend the majority of this episode focusing on. Bear with me because you know how I get when I'm by myself. But on The Athletic this morning, we had a story up how Oli Marmol balances development and playing time during the Cardinals' torrid May. And I think this is super fascinating because it really breaks down the play that Iván Herrera and Alec Burleson have done over the last month that has essentially forced them into the lineup. We'll get into that, but we have to backtrack first and talk about why they got here in the first place. So candidly, my favorite thing about covering the Cardinals this season so far is that post-game and our post-game press conferences, us, the reporters, the media, we're talking about a different impact player each game. Each game, it's somebody new stepping up. And in a season designated to be about the future and long-term development, the fact that so many players are taking key steps forward and turning it into winning results, not just individually, but from a team perspective as well, that's huge. So we'll start with players that have taken major strides forward. Matthew Liberatore has been the Cardinals' best pitcher in the rotation, in my opinion. He has emerged as a true starter, and we can't talk about enough on this show how much he sees this opportunity and how the Cardinals finally gave him one and what he's done with it. I think it's been tremendous. Kyle Leahy emerging as a guy in the setup man, and I think he's going to be there. I think he's going to be great this spot during the rest of the season. But I also wonder, could he follow in the same paths as Libby next year as a potential starter? Right now, I love what we're seeing out of Leahy in the bullpen. He's absolutely been a game changer. Position side, take your pick. Victor Scott II sure looks like the center fielder of the future. Lars Nootbaar, Mason Wynn, Brendan Donovan were not necessarily a part of the transition group or the reset, if you will. Those are 3 guys that the Cardinals were pretty confident in their long-term future, but they just need to see them play every day. You've seen what you have in Mason Wynn, one of the top shortstops in the league. You see what you have in Lars Nootbaar, who's becoming an above-average outfielder in left and has really become a threat at the top of the order. And of course, Brendan Donovan, who leads in almost every single offensive category as one of the top second basemen in the National League. We will continue to push the Brendan Donovan should be an all-star narrative on this show. All-star voting opens on June 4th, by the way, so keep that in your mind. Then you keep going down the list. Of course, I think when you see your cornerstones, veteran players, and Wilson Contreras and Nolan Arenado, they've done a nice job of letting this young identity from this team kind of come to fruition, but still holding it down. I know Nolan hasn't been super happy about his offense, but his defense is back to a Gold Glove caliber standard. Contreras is doing a heck of a job at first base as well. So this is what I'm talking about when I say go down the list. It's somebody new making an impact every game. Those of us who watch every Cardinals game know this. It's an exciting brand of baseball that we haven't seen in a very long time. Well, what does that have to do with the playing time picture? Just about everything. Iván Herrera and Alec Burleson were not necessarily the first tier of the development group identified early this season, right? That was Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. They were, whether it was fair or not, the designated faces of this transition season. And I'm not sure if it's because of their pedigree as former top prospects, as former first-round picks, or because they haven't really lived up to their potential yet for a multitude of reasons, some on the player, most on the team. But those were the two guys that Mo and Oli identified early on as, hey, we have to get them right. We have to get them at bats. But the Cardinals are also finding out that they have some true bats in the second tier of development group, the Herrera, the Burleson group. And it's led them to where they are now, which would be if the season ended right now on May 30th, they'd be a playoff team. Who saw that coming? Certainly not me. So how does that play into the playing time picture? Let's break that down. First, though, a message from our friends at Harry's Razors.
If you want a razor that looks good, makes you look good, gets the shave done, and doesn't cost much,
Oh.
Is it nice?
That's a hairy John. And you can smell it, too. Smell it, John. Smell it.
Oh, wow. What is
After
that?
See,
shave?
that's Harry's. That's the shave gel. I'm telling you, look. I mean, this.
You look scary, man.
It's the shot.
Fresh.
Now come in. Get this.
I don't want to touch this head anymore. Oh, my God.
Soft it is.
That looks like
it is
German
soft.
engineered blades made in
It
their
is
own
soft.
factory that stay sharp longer.
I'm using the razor, and it does not. You can start to feel when
Yeah,
it gets dull. I mean, you guys only do like here and like up here.
true.
I'm doing acreage. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally their trial set is $10, but right now you can get it for just $6 at harrys.com/foul. That's our exclusive link, harrys.com/foul for a $6 trial set.
As the Cardinals continue to try to push their way back to the top of the standings, Oli Marmol is now trying to balance playing time between Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, because that was promised from at the start of the season and identified as the two guys they absolutely needed to figure out. He's also trying to balance Iván Herrera, who is, he's not going to hit over 400 forever, but he is absolutely one of the Cardinals' most lethal bats. And Alec Burleson, who does a really nice job against right-handed hitters and is the better left-handed bat from a production standpoint than Gorman right now. So there are four players that Oli needs to try to find playing time for every day in Herrera, Burleson, Walker, and Gorman. And it's not an easy process. So I talked to Oli earlier in the week. Here's how the manager of the Cardinals is currently breaking down his playing time. I'll read this straight from The Athletic. Again, you can find the story there under the Cardinals page. Oli Marmol said, "I don't want to use Jordan Walker as a platoon guy, but I don't mind firing Alec Burleson in there strictly against righties. I won't do it every time because Walker needs to play more than whenever we see a left-handed starter. But the way Alec is swinging it, it's hard not to put him there against some of the other team's best right-handers. So Jordan will play against lefties and righties, doesn't matter, and I'll pick Burleson's spots to hit against righties. I'd like Herrera to be in there every day. It's going to be mostly at the DH. I'll pair him with a couple of guys throughout the week to catch, which gives Burleson a shot at playing first and getting Wilson Contreras off his feet. He'll serve as the DH. I will give Walker a couple of days a week off, playing him 4 to 5 days a week instead of running him out there every day, which gives Burleson another 2 games in the outfield. The name you're looking for here is Gorman, and that's where I'm having the most trouble finding playing time for. That's not an easy rotation." So let's break down a couple of things. One, I think that's a really candid explanation from Oli Marmol, and I appreciate the transparency there. Sometimes in situations like this, there is going to be an odd man out. In this case right now, it's Nolan Gorman. And is that fair to Gorman? Probably not. But if you play Gorman every day, who are you sitting him for? Who is that coming at the expense of? You sure as heck are not taking Brennan Donovan out of that lineup. No way. You're definitely not taking Herrera out of that lineup. You shouldn't. And Alec Burleson has done a great job against righties. Now, Jordan Walker, we talked about this in the last 3 weeks. It was not good offensively. He really struggled, but the Cardinals committed to playing him every day through that. And what we're seeing over the last week is potentially a breakthrough. Let's look at Jordan's stats over the last week. And again, small sample size, but this is important to note when you think about the long-term picture for Jordan Walker. Let me find it. Give me a second. I think with Jordan, it's not just the stats, which look good, right? It's also how he's playing and how he's bought into the messaging. So twofold, maybe I won't find Jordan's stats. Maybe I don't know how to read. There they are. Over the last 11 games, Jordan is hitting 333 with a 545 slugging line. He has a homer and has driven in 10 runs, and he's come through the clutch. That's part of the collective buy-in that we talked in last episode with Bernie, how the organization is buying into Jordan and Jordan has bought back into them. That is so important to continue doing. So if you take Walker out of the lineup, now that you're seeing substantial progress in the box score, you're just undoing that month's work of progress. So yeah, who are you going to play at the expense of Nolan Gorman? What Iván Herrera and Alec Burleson have done is very similar to what Matthew Liberatore has done. They have created their runway. Herrera coming in and being one of the team's most prolific offensive hitters was probably not something anyone had on their bingo card. Well, I think we knew he could hit, obviously, because we know the scouting report, but I didn't have him coming in as the team's primary DH. Let's back up. Why is Herrera, who came up as a top catching prospect, going to be the primary DH? That's actually more of a praise to Pedro Pages than it is a knock on Iván Herrera. Pedro does so many things well in terms of game planning, scouting, pitch calling, preparation. Almost every starting pitcher has commended Pedro at some point this season or credited him for his game planning and his execution. And when you think about this pitch to contact staff, having a game plan and trusting your catcher is so important, because it's not like this starting rotation is going to go out there and blow doors past hitters. They don't have that velo. They don't have that stuff. They do have trust in Pedro to be able to be effective and get those outs. That's not to say Herrera can't do that, but they need to develop him, keyword of the season, along that side defensively to get him to Pedro's level. But if you're Oli Marmol, you're not sitting that bat on the bench. There's no way. Herrera should be playing every day. So if it's at the DH and it comes at the expense of playing time for somebody, but you're winning games, that's kind of the balance the Cardinals are having a hard time. Well, actually, I don't know if they're having a hard time, because they're doing a pretty good job of finding success in the wins and losses, but it will come at the expense of a player. And I appreciate Oli Marmol's honesty about, it's just not being a tough spot for Gorman right now, because it is. His hasn't looked great. I will say there are things underlying under the hood that suggest that things are better for Gorman. He's cut a strikeout rate down nearly 11% compared to last year. Last year, that strikeout rate was 37.6%. This year, it's just over 27. So that's huge. He's working more walks. The contact rate is up. He's just not hitting for average or hitting for power. And when you're a player who profiles like Gorman, you want to see that. Now, what he really needs is a long run like Jordan Walker had, consistent bats to show it. But you can't do that right now if you're the Cardinals, because it's coming at the expense of somebody else who's been so productive. It's not like Donovan is slumping. It's not like Burleson is slumping or Herrera, and Walker is showing signs of turning it around. So someone, again, is going to be the odd man out. In this case, it's Nolan Gorman. Is it perfect? No. But is it hard? Can you argue with the results from the Cardinals right now from a team standpoint? Also, no. I think the biggest question for St. Louis going forward is, how are they going to continue balancing long-term results with short-term team victories? And is this sustainable? I kind of think it might be. It's just coming at different players doing different things that we maybe first expected in the beginning of the season. So we'll dive into Nolan Gorman's playing time. Like I said, this is going to be a short one because we have to get to the ballpark. And I think we can dive into that a little bit more on what the Cardinals should do with Nolan Gorman. But first, we got to hear from Roback.
The weather is warming up, and with that being said, you need to check out what Roback is bringing to the table. If you're a golfer, especially, and you're looking for golf shirts that just have the perfect style and also are soft, they're lightweight, and perfect for the summertime, Roback is the spot. Of course, FT's hooking you up with a code for 20% off at roback.com. That's FOUL on RHOBACK.com for 20% off all shorts, hoodies, polos, and more.
So when I asked Oli Marmol before the road trip about Nolan Gorman and what we should be looking at, it was pretty self-explanatory. He said, what's tough for Gorman right now is when you look under the hood, he's making more contact, he's chasing less, he's walking more. We just discussed this. Yes, the bat speed is down, but that's at the expense of making contact. He needs a run of games to show that it's coming into play, which is hard to do at the moment because I'm not sure who he'd play him at the expense of. There's not a great answer for it. Now, the common fan reaction would be, well, just send Gorman to Memphis. He needs at bats. There's nothing that Nolan Gorman can get out of Memphis anymore. He doesn't need to show anything at AAA. He doesn't need at bats in AAA. We know he can hit AAA pitching. We know he can be a minor league hitter. They don't need to know that. The whole point of the season is to figure out what this team can do or what these players can do at the major league level. So there is nothing for Nolan Gorman in the minors except for the sake of consistent at-bats, which ultimately does nothing for his long-term development. It doesn't matter if Nolan Gorman can hit minor league pitching. It matters if he can hit major league pitching. Finding him at-bats right now is going to continue to be a priority for Oli Marmol, but as he said, won't be easy. I think right now, if you're the St. Louis Cardinals, you play the hot bats. I know that John Mozeliak came out in the offseason and said, we're going to give Gorman 600 at-bats. That's when they were under the pretense that Nolan Arenado would not be a Cardinal. Nolan stayed. Mo said, and Oli said, we could probably get him 450 to 500 at-bats. And right now, Gorman's on pace to see about 350. So that's obviously much lower than 600, but that was out of the organization's control for the most part. 350 is still much lower than 450 and 500, but 350 is still a solid sample size to decide what Gorman can be in the future. Now, if Burleson tapers off or Herrera tapers off and there's an opportunity to get Gorman back in there, we will see that. I mean, we saw the Cardinals do the exact opposite of this in April. Burleson was not playing well and not hitting well, and he was riding the bench. And Gorman was hitting or attempting to hit every single day. He had that stretch of playing time. He didn't do much with it. Now the Cardinals are figuring out how to develop other players as well, so it's Burleson's time to shine. So for all the clamor that I've been getting about Nolan Gorman needing to go to Memphis or getting at-bats, I agree with you. He does need to get at-bats, but not in Memphis. It needs to be in the major leagues. And right now, if you want the Cardinals to keep up their win streak and, maybe be a relevant team in the second half, because who knows what they're going to do at the trade deadline. That's talk for a different episode. Then this is kind of what you have to do. Play the hot bats, communicate with Gorman that he's going to see some sort of a decrease in playing time, just like you did with Burleson. These things will even themselves out and go from there. But I really like what the Cardinals are seeing from Jordan Walker right now. I think this is a good example of what happens when you stick with a player and you're patient, even when the results aren't there fully all the way. I love what Iván Herrera looks like in the middle of the order. I really think Alec Burleson can be a true bat against righties, and I don't disagree with the notion to platoon him. If you look at the splits, Burleson has career hit righties much better than he has against lefties. And when you have finally some bats from the right side that can provide some thump, use him as a platoon player. Use him at his best. I agree. It's not a perfect situation for the St. Louis Cardinals. And you certainly want to see what you have in Nolan Gorman. But right now, if you're a fan, and I'm not sure what the answer is because I think we all have different opinions here, ask yourself what's more important, winning right now or figuring out what your players are long-term. But what if the players that are performing right now are part of that long-term? And what if this has expedited the process for where the Cardinals are supposed to be? Because that is a legitimate thing as well. That's what I'm thinking about as I watch the Cardinals for 3 games in Texas. We'll see how they end the last 2-3 games of the month. June will be a big test for them. There are 2 off days, 2 scheduled team off days in June, one being June 2nd, one being June 16th. The Cardinals' depth has not really been tested, so let's knock on wood collectively together. There have not been any major injuries for the St. Louis Cardinals yet. They have not had their rotation tested. They have not had their depth tested. They've been able to play, especially with the every Thursday off day in May. They're a team almost every day. In June, they're going to have to rely on their bench. They're going to have to rely on their health. We might see Steven Matz, who has thrived in that bullpen role, come back and serve in that hybrid role again, just for the sake of resting the pitchers. We've talked about how important that's been with Oli Marmol and Dusty Blake and the results it's led to. So June will be a big test for the Cardinals in terms of their depth. That's been a problem for them in years past. I'd like to see how they do from there. But right now, I think it's safe to say the Cardinals are ahead of schedule with their development plan. They've done so, and they are that way because certain players have taken major steps forward that they maybe didn't project to. And it's really been fun to watch. So that was a super fast version of Cardinal Territory. Again, about to head to the ballpark, Globe Life Field. Let's see what they got. And let's keep our minds focused onto June. It should be a well-pitched series. You got Libby tonight, Sunny on Saturday, and Eric Betty on Sunday. The Texas Rangers have been a woefully offensive team. They are only team in baseball with a lower OPS than Texas are the Colorado Rockies, and that's never a good sign when you're looped in with that organization. So we'll see how the Cardinals do to round out the month, and we'll see what they do with their depth in June, because I firmly believe that will be tested. But right now, you cannot fault Oli Marmol and the Cardinals for playing the hot bats. I'm sure the Gorman situation will work itself out in time, but right now, in a season about development and figuring out who can play, you might as well play the players that are producing. All right, Bernie and I are back with you on Sunday to break down the oh my gosh, why did I say Tigers? The Rangers and Cardinals series. Hopefully it's another series win. Thanks, Zoe, for watching. This is Cardinal Territory.